The last train of the evening was delayed again. Clara Harper sat quietly on the cold wooden bench at Whitmore station, her gloved hands wrapped around a paper cup of lukewarm tea. The station was almost deserted, save for the faint echo of footsteps from a guard locking the far gate. A fog rolled across the platform, softening the dim glow of the lamps, and for a moment, Clara felt as though she were the only soul left awake in this small town. As she shifted uncomfortably, her hand brushed against something tucked between the slats of the bench. It was a folded piece of paper, thick and yellowed at the edges, as though it had been left behind some time ago. Curiosity pricked her nerves. She glanced around, half expecting someone to return for it, but the platform remained silent. Slowly, she unfolded the letter. The handwriting inside was uneven, hurried, as though written in a rush. The words struck her like a whisper from another time. If you are reading this, then I may already be gone. Seek the truth at number 17, on the street we once walked together. Do not ignore this. Everything depends on it. Clara's heart thudded. The letter had no name, no address of the sender, only those cryptic lines and an initial scrawled at the bottom, just the letter E. She frowned, wondering if it was some forgotten love note, or perhaps a cruel joke. Yet something in the tone felt urgent, desperate even. She folded it back, meaning to leave it where she found it. But her fingers refused to let go. The train's whistle broke the silence, the carriages sliding into the station with a metallic groan. Clara tucked the letter into her coat pocket. When she finally boarded, she could not shake the sense that she had taken something she was not meant to find. And as the train pulled away from Whitmore, she caught sight of a man standing alone at the far end of the platform. He was watching her carriage intently, his figure blurred by fog. By the time she blinked, he was gone. Clara pressed her hand to the pocket where the letter rested. Somehow, she knew her quiet life was about to unravel. The following morning, Clara could not shake the memory of the letter. She told herself it was foolish to dwell on such nonsense, yet the words lingered in her mind as she made her way through Bath's cobbled streets. Even at school, while correcting essays, her eyes drifted to her coat pocket where the folded paper lay hidden. By late afternoon, curiosity had grown unbearable. After her lessons ended, Clara took the bus across town to a narrow street she barely remembered from years ago. It was one of those lanes lined with terraced houses, their bricks darkened by rain and time. She counted carefully until she reached the faded number fixed to a peeling green door, 17. The house looked abandoned. The curtains were drawn, the windows filmed with dust. Clara hesitated, aware of how absurd she must appear, standing outside a stranger's home with nothing but a cryptic note in her possession. She glanced around, no one was watching. Then, with a deep breath, she lifted the brass knocker and let it fall. The sound echoed faintly inside. No answer. She tried again, louder this time. Still nothing. Just as she was about to leave, she noticed something wedged beneath the doormat, a second envelope, yellowed like the first. Her pulse quickened as she bent to retrieve it. Before she could open it, the door creaked inward. A man in his late 60s stood there, tall and sharp-eyed despite his age. His expression was unreadable as he regarded Clara. "You shouldn't be here," he said in a low voice. Clara froze, the letter clutched in her hand. Clara's voice faltered as she tried to explain herself. I found a letter. It led me here." The man's gaze dropped to her hand, where the envelope trembled between her fingers. For a moment his face tightened, as though he recognized it. Then he stepped aside slowly. "Come in." But only for a moment. Hesitant yet compelled, Clara crossed the threshold. The hallway was dim and smelled faintly of old books and damp stone. Dust clung to the furniture, though here and there, signs of life suggested the house was not entirely abandoned. A lamp burned weakly on a side table. A coat, too large for the man before her, hung from a peg on the wall. He led her into a sitting room where faded armchairs faced a cold fireplace. "You should not have touched it," he muttered, lowering himself into one of the chairs. "The letter was not meant for you." Clara gripped the envelope. "Then who was it meant for?" He studied her in silence before replying. "Someone who disappeared a very long time ago." The words sent a chill along Clara's spine. She wanted to press further, but the man's eyes hardened, warning her against questions. Yet he seemed burdened, as if holding back too much. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "If you truly wish to know, go to the riverbank at dusk. There you may find what remains of the truth." Before Clara could respond, a sudden knock rattled the front door. The man froze, his expression filled with dread. "Do not answer," he hissed. "They must not see you here." Clara clutched the letter tighter as the knock came again, louder this time. The knocking grew heavier, echoing through the narrow hallway like the tolling of a bell. Clara's breath caught in her throat. The old man pressed a finger to his lips, urging silence. They waited. After a long, tense pause, the sound ceased, leaving only the groan of the house as the wind pressed against the shutters. Clara lowered her gaze to the envelope she still held. It was identical to the first, sealed with brittle wax. Her hands trembled as she slipped a finger beneath the flap. The old man shifted uneasily, as though he both dreaded and expected what she might uncover. Inside lay a single sheet, written in the same hurried hand. The ink was smudged, the message brief. 17 is not the end. Follow the water's path to where the willow bends. The truth waits there, but beware of shadows, they do not forgive. Clara's skin prickled. She lifted her eyes to the man, but his expression darkened further. "You should have left it," he said hoarsely. "You do not understand what you have stepped into." "Then explain it to me," Clara demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. But before he could answer, glass shattered from the back of the house. Both turned sharply towards the sound. The man's face went pale. "They have found us," he whispered. He seized Clara's arm, thrusting her towards the hallway. "Go, now. Take the letter. Do not look back." The floorboards creaked with approaching footsteps, slow and deliberate, as though someone, or something, was already inside. Clara stumbled into the hallway as the man pushed her forward. Behind them, the sound of glass crunching underfoot echoed nearer. Whoever had broken in was moving slowly, deliberately, as though certain they would not be stopped. Out through the front door, the man urged, his voice sharp with fear. He thrust a small iron key into her hand. "The river, remember the river. Do not let them take it from you." Clara's fingers closed around the cold key. She wanted to ask who they were, but the urgency in his eyes silenced her. She ran to the door, fumbling with the stiff lock, while footsteps grew heavier in the kitchen behind. Just as the door gave way, a crash thundered through the house, furniture overturned, a muffled curse. Clara slipped outside into the evening air. Fog had swallowed the street, thick and suffocating. The houses on either side blurred into pale shapes. She could barely see more than a few paces ahead. She turned to glance back. The man's silhouette appeared at the doorway, his hand raised in a desperate signal for her to run. Then a shadow moved behind him, tall and angular. The door slammed shut before she could call out. Clara's heart hammered. Clutching the envelope and the key, she plunged into the mist. The sound of boots followed her, steady and relentless, growing closer no matter which way she turned. At the corner of the lane, she nearly collided with a figure emerging from the fog. For an instant she froze, unable to breathe. Clara staggered back, nearly dropping the envelope and key. The figure loomed only a step away, their outline blurred by the thick fog. For a heartbeat, silence hung between them. Then the figure raised both hands slowly. "I am not here to harm you," came a low, urgent voice. It belonged to a woman, her accent northern, steady despite the tension. "You must come with me. They have already marked you." Clara's grip tightened. "Who are you?" "What do you mean, marked me?" The woman stepped closer, her face emerging from the haze. She was in her 30s, dressed plainly in a long coat, her dark hair tied back. Her eyes, however, were sharp, restless, darting towards the sound of footsteps still echoing through the mist. "There is no time to explain," she said quickly. "If you wish to live, follow me. The river is not far, but we must take another path." Clara hesitated, torn between the cryptic warning in the letters and the urgency in this stranger's voice. She opened her mouth to protest, but the thud of boots striking cobblestones grew louder. Shapes were moving in the fog behind her, multiple, advancing fast. The woman seized Clara's wrist. "Now," she commanded. Clara stumbled after her, heart racing, the two of them swallowed by the fog. But as they turned into a narrow alley, Clara caught sight of a dark silhouette ahead, motionless, waiting. The stranger's grip on Clara's wrist tightened as they halted before the dark silhouette blocking the alley. Fog swirled around the figure, revealing the outline of a tall man in a long coat. His face was hidden beneath the brim of a hat, but his posture was rigid, as if he had been waiting for them. "Keep moving," the woman whispered urgently, though Clara felt her arm tense. The man spoke without raising his head. His voice was calm, almost polite, but carried a weight that chilled Clara to the bone. "You were warned not to interfere. Yet here you are, carrying what does not belong to you." Clara's breath caught. Her hand instinctively brushed the envelope in her pocket. How did he know? The woman stepped forward, her shoulders squared. "She knows nothing. Let her go." For a long moment, silence hung in the mist. Then the man tilted his head ever so slightly. Two more figures appeared behind him, shadows melting out of the fog, tall and silent. Clara felt the alley closing in around her, her heart drumming against her ribs. The woman squeezed her hand. "When I tell you, run." "But," Clara began. "Run." The woman shoved Clara hard to the side, sending her stumbling into a gap between buildings. Clara crashed against a wall, the envelope slipping from her coat. As she scrambled to retrieve it, a hand shot out from the shadows and closed over hers. Clara froze as the hand tightened over hers. She dared to look up. A pale face emerged from the gloom, illuminated faintly by the gaslight. It was not one of the men in the alley. This was someone else, an old man with eyes as sharp as glass, his features drawn but strangely calm. "Do not speak," he whispered, his voice rasping like dry leaves. "They cannot see us here." Clara's chest rose and fell rapidly. "Who are you?" she mouthed, but no sound came out. The old man released her hand only to point at the envelope lying between them. "That does not belong to them. It belongs to me." Before Clara could reply, the sound of boots thundered through the alley. The tall man and his companions had realized she was gone. Their shadows stretched long across the mist, reaching for her like claws. The old man pressed a finger to his lips and guided her deeper into the gap, where a narrow iron door waited, half concealed by bricks. With surprising strength, he wrenched it open and pulled her inside. The door slammed shut, muffling the shouts outside. They stood in darkness. The air was damp, the walls cold. A single lantern flickered to life as the old man lit it, revealing rows of shelves laden with dust-covered books and bundles of yellowed paper. "This place," he said quietly, "was built to protect what they fear most. The truth." Clara clutched the envelope, her fingers trembling. "Then what is inside?" The man's expression hardened. "Evidence of a pact older than you can imagine. And now, Miss Whitmore, it is your burden." Clara's mouth went dry. "Why mine?" The old man leaned closer, his eyes gleaming in the lantern light. "Because your name," he whispered, "is already written in it,